Hello, everybody. A little different today. Usually we have JP doing the intro, but JP had some family things that came up. So I'm flying solo tonight. But again, you have Rohan here. You're, as JP likes to call it, our non-geek, non-nerd host for tonight. And tonight, we got another great interview with Dave from West Coast Davengers. Cool things about Dave. We just learned that we literally live within an hour of each other, and we just found that out, which is pretty interesting. Secondly, I'll say, so I knew of Dave through Manu first. He and I talk often. We obviously had Manu on, and he hit me up one day. He's like, you've had me on, you got Justin coming up, you got Fausto coming. He's like, you got to get Dave from West Coast Avengers. I was like, yeah, I've heard the name. I'll hit him up. And Dave was gracious. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Even though we hadn't met. And then the other thing I will say about Dave. So there are two videos that you can find on YouTube that bring absolute extreme joy. One is a guy, Alonzo, on a show with Justin from Spidey, and a show that Dave is on often, pack pulling a AF-15 Comica card. Awesome. The other is Dave. He's got this video where he bought a short box for, I can't remember the price, but he's going through it, and turned out he found a giant size X-Men 1, and he just freaks out. I mean, it's pure joy. Dave, I love it. So Dave, say hi. How are you doing? The first thing you want to know is, did you keep the GSX one, or was that one for sale?
Okay. Well, nice to meet you, Rohan. And thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor to be in such esteemed company as Manu and Justin and yourself and Fausto. And yes, I did keep that raw copy because I had just gotten one back from CGC that was a 4.5, and the raw copy's higher, and I'm really happy to have it. It's in a short box just over there.
Nice. So are you keeping it raw, or did you get that great as well?
I am keeping it raw for the foreseeable future. I have almost an entire, I have an entire X-Men run starting with GSX all the way through the Claremont run, and It's all raw. It's all raw.
And I mean, since we're talking about this is a perfect example. Did you hear about the changes at CGC with their prices?
I did. I mean, it wasn't much of a price hike. I mean, the thing that's more astonishing is the pre-screen being limited to nothing. You could do one book on pre-screen.
Oh, I didn't say. What I was gonna say is the GSX 1. It kind of fits into that category. So I mean, I have a GSX 1. It's lower grade than the one you have, but I still think the value is above $1,000.
Oh yeah.
And so yours, I don't know what your grade estimate is, but we can say it's somewhere probably
6 to 7.
Yeah, so I mean, it's probably that's close to 3,000, maybe, or right. Yeah. So it's going to fit. It used to be that window that was 1,000 to 3,000, and now we've got to put these through walkthrough, which is quite expensive, I will say. But
it is quite expensive, and I know I'm going to have to deal with it for several books. But you know what? I'm easing away towards my PC being slabbed more towards raw, so I'm okay with it.
Nice. Oh, well, we'll definitely want to talk about that a little bit. But we always start kind of with our comic origin story. So I think I heard you're similar age to me, so I just turned 40. So we were 90s kids. Tell me about growing up. Is that when the comic love started? Was there a break? Like, kind of give me the whole story.
So I was born Jack Kirby back in 1920. Oh, you mean, okay? I'm sorry. So I grew up in New York, and I grew up on Long Island, and we had a comic store. I like to say it's 1.5 comic stores per town. Some towns had 3, some towns had 1, some towns had 4. So we average it out, 1.5 comic stores. My parents never told me I shouldn't read comics. My dad read comics. And so I don't remember when it started, but Wolverine was my first love. And I started reading comics in probably like 86, 87. I was born in 79. So, 8, 9 years old or whatever. And I can't remember how it started, but I know it started with Wolverine and Batman. And, nice. I became a mainstay at the local comic store every week with my best friend, Seth. We would go walking distance from our house, and the owner probably hated us because we hung out there too much, but we spent what money we had buying Wolverine. And I think I started somewhere around like issue 15 of the ongoing series that started in 88. And then I eventually got the older issues but I started there and just kept going forward with it. And then my first true love when it came to comic book artists was a guy that we all know, Todd.
Oh
Todd,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I've heard your phrase. What is it? See Todd, buy Todd. Is that has it? Yeah.
that's the one. Wait, hold on. It's on a sticker now.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. Perfect. And yeah, you got the script and everything. It's funny you say, the hanging out at the comic shops, maybe the owner hated us. It's like, it's funny when I think back. So I started early on as a kid as well, probably similar age, and I was comic books. And then I transitioned to sports cards. But in the 90s, they would have comic book stores and they even had sport card stores. And so I always remember, like, as a child, my parents, like, they would go to Fred Meyer and, they'd be there in an hour. That would drop my brother and I off at what other age was it? It was either at the comic book store or
The card store.
the card store. And we would just hang out there and just like look at stuff. I mean, the money me and my brother had, it was like meager allowance we got. And then like the big time of the year would be like, oh, we got some birthday money. And we would go. But otherwise, it's like, we're essentially spending $0 for the amount of time we sit there. And it's true. Like when you say that, like, I wonder if these owners are just like, who are these kids digging again? They're here again. Like, but if you did it, I did it. Like this has had to be a constant thing that they were dealing with. So.
100%. And we were fortunate enough to grow up at a time that, right, card stores, comic stores were separate. They are sometimes crossed over, but then you get to the Marvel card aspect of it, and both stores carried it.
Yeah.
And you could get, and then there was also the aspect of we grew up at a time where shopping malls were full of stores that carried comics or cards or toys. And, we had way more at our disposal in person. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I have stayed with comics for the most part for my entire life, because there was so much of it around to actually see instead of, you're looking at it on the internet or you're looking at it on a claim sale. We were fortunate enough to have it, so much of it in person.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I do think it's a shame. Like I only know of one sport card store, and it's really just like barely even a store in downtown Seattle. But otherwise, those are all gone. I do obviously know there are a handful of comic book stores around here, but otherwise, the sports card stores. Actually, since you're in Tacoma, what stores do you like down there? Since I've tried to see what's around here.
Stargazer and Destiny City. Destiny City Comics is the owner is a good friend of mine, and I actually just had him on an episode on my channel a couple weeks ago. He's a pro wrestler and a comic store owner.
Oh, wow.
And his store is all back issues and trades and hardcovers. He carries a lot of independent books. Other than that, Ancient Comics, which is between the two of us.
That's the one I go to. I go there every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff is a weird guy, but he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a funny guy to chat with, but yeah, he's got his own little quirks and things, but yeah.
But yeah, I was very surprised. After everything in Seattle kind of closed, I lived there for 6 years, and there was like 5 comic stores that closed in that time. And I moved down to Tacoma. I realized that this is like the place with the most comic stores in Washington.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I'll have to do some exploring down there.
There's 5 within 10 miles.
Oh, well, I've got some homework to do then.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you never had a break then? You kind of stuck with comics all the way through.
I had the inevitable break that all of us that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s had. When I graduated high school in 97, I probably didn't buy a new comic for, I don't know, like 4 to 6 years, but I didn't get rid of my comics either. I have been lugging the same. I mean, I have thousands of comics now, but I've been lugging the same short box with all my McFarlan stuff around the country since I was a kid.
That's awesome. Yeah, JP, obviously he's not here tonight, but he is the same way. His whole wall that's behind him is all his childhood. I threw all my stuff away. So everything I have now was gained in the last, year. So what were so Wolverine, and then obviously if Todd is your guy, I'm guessing Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Spawn, what other ones do we love?
Wolverine,
here?
Spider-Man, Spawn, and Batman. Those
Batman,
4
yeah.
were the characters that I could tell you that have been with me, in one way, shape, or form my whole life. And then I'm looking at behind the computers an Infinity Gauntlet original poster, and Thanos has been my dude since I was a kid. Like that image, is the cover for Infinity Gauntlet #1.
Yep.
One of my favorite covers of all time. One of my favorite
Yeah, I
images.
think of the major event storylines, like Infinity Gauntlet as well for me is the one that sticks. It's like, I remember Secret Wars, and things like Infinity Gauntlet, hands down, sticks out by far more than anything. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. What were some of your? Were there any any of your grails from your childhood? Like, are there any grails in your collection now that are from your childhood?
Yes, my ASM 300 is the one I've had since I was, I bought it probably somewhere between the ages of 15 and 18, at a show probably for $50 or $30. But that is my original copy. It is grade worthy, but I don't have any desire to grade it.
Yeah, you kind of lose. Yeah, you keep it as it is. That's cool. Very
And
cool.
the crazy thing about it, it's a newsstand.
Oh, there
I
you
have
go.
no clue how that happened because I didn't buy it on the newsstand, but I that's my original copy. My Spawn 1 is my original copy. It's signed by Todd. I got it signed by him. And there's a couple others in that the Todd box. Well, now it's 6 boxes of Todd books, but that's a different story. And my parents went to Denmark and some of Norway and that area, the Scandinavian area of the world. When I was like 9 or 10, they brought me back a Detective Comics 500 from Denmark. It's in Danish, and I've had that comic since for 30 plus years.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so then back to the 90s, and especially the characters you named. So were you also a fan of X-Men animated series, the Batman animated series, and Spider-Man animated series? Like like we're having the same story here.
Batman is top. Like I got love for the X-Men and Spider-Man, but there is no animated series that has ever existed in the comic book realm that can come close to topping the perfection that is Batman the animated series.
Yeah, I would agree. Like that was the one, like I watched it through and through. Yeah, I would agree with you there. I do think that Spider-Man and X-Men are fantastic.
Sure.
But I would agree with you. Yeah, like the GOAT of them all is definitely Batman.
It's a style that's unmatched, and I'm so thankful that it's available on HBO, because there are days where I just put it on while I'm working and let it play, and I'll look up and be like, oh yeah, I love this episode, and keep going. So I get that. We were, like I said, we were very fortunate to grow up at a time where comics exploded in every way, right? Video games, TV, the books, the cards, and then it imploded, and then it blew up again in movies. But we were fortunate enough to have all of that when it was happening.
It's kind of funny that like the movies did it, like you said, there's video games, there's cartoons, there's comics are everywhere, there's comic stores everywhere. It's kind of funny that they didn't start kind of making the mass production movies like they do now.
Well, the technology.
That's a good point. Yeah, the technology. Yeah. That's true. Like Batman, they were able to do because it didn't really require. Yeah, that's a good point. I did that obviously.
But if it wasn't for 1989 Batman, things, I don't know what kind of comic landscape we'd be living in if Batman didn't come out in 89, because that saved DC. It saved, like, I side tangent, I just found out in like 85, 86, 87, DC was selling, their biggest book was Batman, and it was less than 200,000 copies in circulation, which is wild, because when you get to 1990, 91, Marvel is putting out millions of copies of X-Men 1, millions of copies of certain books.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my dog.
That's okay.
What do you
That's
need?
okay.
Okay. Yeah, that I remember that 1989 Batman, going to see that in the movie theaters and being just blown away. And when I think about it, like I came in 89, I was born in 83. And so I was like, I must have been like 6 or 7 when my parents took me to see that in the movie theater. I remember that movie. And are you a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan at all?
Oh yeah.
The first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie I remember was so awesome as well.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, and I've watched both recently. Obviously, everyone knows the 89 Batman holds up, but the first TMNT movie I think holds up very well as well.
It's creepy, but it holds up.
Yeah.
You know, like when you look at those costumes, you're like, oh, I'd be terrified of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I've been telling people, and I heard this on another podcast, but like it would be really cool if they made a adult version of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah, like more towards what the original comic was geared
at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like think about like an actually like adult version of like the Shredder. Like that would be awesome.
Oh, it would. But I think that's the beauty of the two mediums. You know, you can have comics that are more geared towards adults, and the movies can be geared towards younger people. But then you can go vice versa with like the Alan Moore stuff, with like Watchmen and Sin City and three
Mhm.
and Frank Miller's stuff. So it's the beauty of the medium, though. It's can be interpreted so many ways.
Yeah. So also with that, you're on Justin's show often.
Mhm.
So that means you're also into cards, I'm assuming.
A bit, a
So
bit.
we always talk about the Impel Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, Marvel Universe, 1990, 91, 92. For both JP and I, and a few of our guests we've had, that was the quintessential like Marvel encyclopedia for us. And that kind of taught us everything we needed to know. Like I read
Mhm.
those cards more than I read the comics. Do you have a similar story there?
Yes, I mean, I was buying that stuff when it came out, like, by the box, by never bought a case on my own, but it would be like, "Oh, I'll go to the card show this weekend and buy another box and buy another box." Impel 90, perfect. Impel
Yeah.
91, more perfect
Yeah,
because
that's my favorite is the 91. The Series 2 is my
well,
favorite.
because you get Larson art, you get Art Adams, you get some Jim Lee in there, you get a little bit of everybody that you recognize, and it's that recognition of, "Oh, it's the same guy that's drawing that character is doing the card."
Yeah.
And then Just Go's 92 masterpieces.
Oh, yeah, the
Mm,
92. Yeah,
yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Actually,
The
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say the 92 Series 3 I do dig, but not as much as I do the Series 1 and Series
For
2.
sure. For sure. The Series 3 Marvel Universe is great because they threw you know what card is sticks out the most to me in that set? Ron Lim's Silver Surfer card.
Dude, yeah, such a great card.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Fausto and I talk because that's the card that started his love of the Silver Surfer. And so for me, it was the Series 2 Silver Surfer card.
Mhm.
I've told this story before, but I just remember walking to school in fourth grade and my friend Jeremy handed me this card. And I like looked, I was like, oh my gosh, who's this guy? And then I flipped it over and I saw the power ratings and
Yeah.
I was just blown away. And Surfer's been my number one guy since then.
It cannot be understated for 90s kids how important those cards truly are for how we viewed comic book characters and who we chose to be our favorites, because it's trading, they're trading cards, so
Mhm.
they're easier to just throw around, and I mean that, like, we throw cards around, throw them to each other and like trade them. And but it's funny because the 92 Marvel masterpieces, nobody threw those around because they
No,
look so good.
yeah.
They really were like the upper echelon, and it's funny. Just a side note, on Justin's show last night, I don't know if you saw, I opened up a box of 92 Jim Lee X-Men.
Oh, yeah, I watched it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a
Um,
killer box.
I don't know if you saw. So Manu read my comment on that, and I said I opened so many of those packs when I was a kid.
Ugh.
Yet I had no idea that there were Jim Lee autographed ones because I never
Yeah,
got any, and I didn't get it until we did our interview with Justin, and he's like, "Oh, I got this Wolverine signed by Jim Lee," and I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean you got it signed by Jim Lee?" And he's like, "It came, in the." I was like, "What?" Like
yeah,
oh
and it's funny because I didn't remember that, even though it says it on the box. So we just didn't care. We wanted to
yeah,
open the
I did.
packs
Yeah,
open.
I mean, I saw like Magneto on the box, and that's I didn't read anything on the
Yeah,
box.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cards became a huge thing in my life, and sports cards too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you
Yeah.
still collect sports cards at all?
No, I actually just kind of stepped completely away from being any type of sports fan about 4 or 5 years ago. It just doesn't work for me anymore.
Oh, not a fan of all at all of sports.
Yeah,
All
like
interesting.
if I'll go to a hockey game every once in a while. The last time the Mets played in Seattle, I went to watch one game, and I can't really, I can't really deal with sports fans anymore.
Oh, well, I'm a
Yeah.
big sports fan, but so we won't
You're a
agree
nice
there.
guy, though. You seem like a nice guy. I'm talking about the general American sports fan public.
Yeah.
Not my thing anymore.
Um, okay, let's talk more now about today, collecting wise. We'll get into the selling side here in a
Sure.
second, but do you still collect the same characters? Has it expanded on what you collect? What are you going after now?
Actually, my collecting has gotten more refined. I've kind of trimmed it down. The basis of my collection, and it's the basis of my love for comics, is Todd, and I'm on a quest to get every single piece of published art that Todd has put out there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is that cards and comics or just comics?
it's just comics. And
Okay.
unless there's a card that exists of a piece of art that never appeared in print,
Yeah.
so it's magazines, it's whatever I can get. And it's going well. I mean, I'm doing Marvel, DC, and everything else before I really touch Image, but at the same time, I have 8 books to complete the Spawn 1 through 300 run. Uh,
What what issues has he like when did he stop doing Spawn? I
he
don't know.
stopped in issue 12, 16, somewhere around there, but he's done covers
Yeah.
and he's inked he inked Greg Capullo for years. So I'm the Spawn 1 through 300 run is really just to get that.
Yeah.
But there's variant covers that Todd's done for Spawn all the way through. But there's a lot of hidden stuff out there that people don't know that he has a pinup in, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 50. He has a pinup in Sandman number 50. He has a pinup in that. It's the only time he ever drew Morpheus. There's a book called The Olympians that he did the cover for issue 1. It's an Epic Comics book.
So how do you research? Like, how did you learn? Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. So where are you researching all
One
this?
of the biggest pieces of research is actually one of my favorite things is this hard, it exists in softcover, but it's the art of Todd McFarlan,
Ah,
The Devil's in the Details. It's an out of print book, but this goes through his entire art career, starting with one of the things I didn't know. This was about 10 years ago, 15 years ago when this book came out, was he did a book, Infinity Inc. for DC, and
mm-hmm.
he did like a 23 issue run, and
Huh.
it's wild. I just want to show. There's like one of the covers for it.
Okay. I've seen that trade dress. I didn't know. Okay. I've seen
Yeah.
that trade dress.
So that, and just mixed with, I watch a lot of documentaries. I read a lot
Mhm.
about comics. I go to comic stores every week. I just kind of tap into the vein of comics and learn. And you watch enough, you keep yourself in tune with comics. You see people like, oh, I got this book. It's Todd McFarlan. I'm like, oh, I don't own that. I got to get that.
That's
But
awesome. Yeah. So, what kind of? Let's talk some numbers here. Like, do you know what's the total number are we looking at here?
oh gosh, I don't know. I have currently between the Spawn 1 through 300 run and everything else. I have 6 short boxes of Todd books.
Do you have a ballpark percentage of what that is for the any? Is it 50%? Is it
I'm gonna say
25%?
it's closer to 80 to
80%.
85%.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
you're almost there. That's
I'm
awesome.
getting there. There's a couple hard to find things. I just tracked down the only self-published zine that he ever contributed to was this zine called Touch of I can't remember the name of it. It's something Spot. Jam of Spot was this Canadian guy, and he knew Todd, and he asked Todd to contribute one image. And it's this mini zine from 30 years ago, and I tracked it down. And so it's like one of those things where like another piece got added to the puzzle.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So 2 questions, Ed. Would you collect we'll take ASM 300? You have a newsstand. Would that mean you need to get a direct copy, or is it ASM 300 yours covers it?
No, my ASM 300 newsstands the one,
Okay.
and I am adding an addendum onto the collection. And that addendum is I'm collecting every single one of his Marvel and DC books that exists in a Mark Jeweler variant.
Ah.
And so, thankfully, a Batman 423 and ASM 300 do not exist as Mark Jewelers.
There is a 316 though, I know, because I learned that from Anu.
I have one of those. Yes.
Okay.
The book that I'm tracking down and I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars for is Hulk 340 Mark Jewelers. That
Oh,
one
okay.
that's the big one I need to get. But believe it or not, or I mean it's not that hard to believe, but I'd say about at least 50% of the books that Todd did for Marvel and DC do not exist in Mark Jeweler variants.
Got it. Okay. And so you say you go to comic stores every week. I'm assuming you're looking on eBay. Where are the places are you sourcing all this stuff?
I actually do maybe buy 2 or 3 books on eBay every year. That's about it.
Oh, good. I don't like using eBay either.
Yeah, I don't like paying tax. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, US government.
Yeah.
But comic stores, buying collections, because I do that almost, like let's say on average a collection every 2 weeks. claim sales. I buy some on claim sales that friends are doing. But yeah, I really stick to in-person buying for the most part.
Okay, cool. That makes that's even cooler. And do you keep it all at your place? That's a lot of stuff, a lot of books.
I have an office. Yeah, I'm in my office right now.
Okay. Oh, so this is not where you live then?
No, this is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I have a garage as well.
Okay.
So that helps. Yeah.
Right on. No, that's an ambitious goal. But no, I'm more power to you. I love it.
It is. So that on terms of my collection, it's very Todd heavy, but then there's just a whole bunch of big books that I want to own, and a lot I already do own. As you can see up there, I got an Invincible 1. That's a PC book. I got a Batman. What is this?
227.
Yeah, the 227. That I have the graded books in my PC are all books like this.
Mm-hmm. So give me a quick. What would you say your top 5 current grails are, and what are top 5 big books you would like to own at some point soon?
All right, I'm going to show off one of those grails that.
Oh yeah, show off whatever you want. We love that.
That I got. That was like 3 or 4 months ago. Detective Comics 140, the first Riddler.
Oh, first Riddler. That's awesome.
Yeah, somebody actually in our state was selling this on OfferUp, and it just said Batman comic. And I knew what it was, and I was the first person to go look at it, and I had to buy it.
I peruse on OfferUp every once in a while. I've seen a couple, nothing that good though. Like, what do you mind if I ask what they had it set priced at?
They had it priced at $5,000, and I think I paid $3,300 or $3,500 for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's probably the biggest book that I own that is not going anywhere. I mean, that book that doesn't exist. I mean,
yeah,
you don't see it that often.
No.
Some of my other grails, well, I picked this up last year along with a number 3, and that's a Silver.
Oh yeah, 4. I love it.
So I got a 3 and a 4. Those are big for me because one of my kind of going back to Infinity Gauntlet, my goals was to get first Thanos, first Mephisto, first Surfer, first Galactus, and I've got a 48, a 49. I've got an Iron Man 55. I've got the Mephisto. I've got that one. So
yeah, I have a list of like the 6 because I'm not. My PC is definitely much smaller, and so I have 6 Surfer books that I want, and Silver Surfer 3 is the only one I don't have.
It's come down in price. It's definitely a good time to pick it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of my bigger books. I have most of the Silver Age Batman keys that I'm really stoked about. First Two-Face Silver Age, first Riddler Silver Age. If I ever came across some of these crazy big books, I would have a tough decision to make. If I came across an AF-15 that was a super high grade, I probably would get it graded, sell it, buy a lower grade, pocket the rest of the cash.
I'm with you on this. Yes, I am with you. I feel exactly the same way. Like, I think like, okay, let's use AF-15, right? Let's just say I find one at a garage sale, right? And I get it graded, and this is 7.0, and I'm like, boom, you could sell that. We'll just say $100,000, right?
Yeah.
I would absolutely sell it, buy like a 2.5, right? And then I would use the other money to buy some of the other grails I want, kind of incomparable grades, like the 2.5 to 4.0, somewhere in there. Like, I definitely, yeah. Or same thing, like Hulk 181, if I had a 9.8, like I would sell it. And I would buy a 7.0 or whatever. Like,
I definitely am one of those people. I don't need the highest graded books on these books. It's just like, there's so much more I'd rather own than a crazy high grade first appearance. I mean, if somebody handed me a Detective 27, no matter the grade, I'd probably keep it because it's just like you don't really have that many options to go buy it.
100%. Like, it's like you don't know when you can get that next. I'm totally on that.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm the same way. For me, it's like comic books are not my retirement. Like, those are separate funds, and comic books is purely for joy and for the hobby, and it's my escape. And it's like, when it comes to these big books, I just say, as long as it looks nice, I'm more than happy.
Yep.
Like I have a Marvel Spotlight 5, first Ghost Rider, and it's a 2.5. It's only a 2.5 because someone just randomly took a pair of scissors and sliced like a 3.5-inch cut in the cover. But when it's in a slab, you can't even tell unless you look up close. So it looks like a 5.0, but it's a 2.5. I don't care.
No, and that's if you're happy, then it doesn't really matter. Like
Yeah.
your collection shouldn't mean anything to anybody but you. But you asked me about Grails. The main book, and it's not a hard book that I'm after, but I let it slip through my fingers once, and I'm not gonna do it again. Is House of Secrets 92?
Ah, yeah.
Big Bernie Wrightson fan. I like Swamp Thing, but I love Bernie Wrightson, and that book is so iconic for me. And I've read it, and I love the cheesiness of it because it's like a B horror movie book. But that's the only book on my list this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like it. So it's funny, like I know of Swamp Thing, I know of House of Secrets 92, and I was always like, it's not my thing. I don't really necessarily need it. James Gunn announces the DC movie slate, Swamp Thing 6. And so all of a sudden I just kind of see that cover pop up.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That cover is incredible. It is. And there's almost none like it with like kind of like you can see like the brush strokes from the paintbrush. It's phenomenal. So I have since added it to my list. I wouldn't say it's like my this year's list, but it's definitely something I want to own soon. And I actually just saw like there's a guy I trade with a lot, and he had a 3.0, and I was like, do I want to go after this? But yeah, no, I feel you on that.
And that book is pretty impervious to any type of market change. It is generally it does not go down. Generally, it does not. It only just inches up. I think it's because that book doesn't come across as high grade often because it was a horror book, and horror books they got read more than maybe next to like Dell Disney books. Horror books got loved more than anything else.
So that's a Bronze Age book. Do you know does its census count reflect like anywhere near like a ASM 129 or Hulk 181?
I don't know. I honestly can't tell you. I just, I know from watching that book how it either stays the same price all the time or it just inches up. Yeah.
No, that's an excellent book to get.
Yeah. And just a huge Bernie Wrightson fan, and he's co-creator with Len Wein. And then Hulk 181 is a book that I want, but I'm not going to seek that book out. I'm going to let that book find me.
Yeah, I definitely, I definitely put it in my target. I was like, I want it.
Yeah.
But the deal I got for it definitely worked out. Like I wasn't going to, because you can, like we've talked about, you can go buy 180, you can buy 7 today if you want, right?
Yeah.
But you want to find the right, if you want to find the right deal and the right copy, yeah, I think there's so many of them. Like your deal for that book will come to you. It will find you.
I've bought over the last year and change. I bought 2 collections that book was either in or should have been in because I hit a Hulk 182 in one of them, and I hit a Hulk 178 in the other one, and I was right there. The GSX one, right?
Yeah.
Remember? So that collection had a Hulk almost an entire run after Hulk 181 and the 6 books before 180 and 181.
Yeah. And, this is a good transition point to kind of the sales side. But actually, real quick, you said you did have a House of Secrets 92 that slipped through your fingers.
I was offered one. It was probably like a 3.5, a 4.0 raw for $400. And I said, yes, I will buy it. Can you hold it for me? I'll buy it next time. I procrastinated a little too long, and the person who owned the store sold it. And I was so bummed out.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So I'll get that book, but it's just one of those things that I'm so mad at myself for not buying it. Like I'm waiting for the right opportunity to buy that book.
Yeah. Okay, we can transition now to kind of the sellings, and then we'll start at the beginning here in a sec. But I do want to talk about that GSX box. So, if I remember correctly, was it $600 you paid for that short box?
It wasn't a short. It was like 4 or 3 short boxes, but yeah. It was $600.
So obviously you hit the home run with the GSX one.
Yeah.
But take that out. I feel like there's a Batman 251. There was an X-Men 94. There was X-Men 100. There was X-Men or Batman 232. I feel like you got more than 600 even without that GSX one.
I without crunching the numbers of the stuff that I sold and the stuff that I kept, I'd say close to between $8,000 and $10,000 in books. Yeah.
Oh,
and that's not the first time that's happened.
Oh man, yeah, and we're gonna definitely. So JP and I. So JP is more so than me. Like he's he gets on the road a lot for work, and so he like searches out like the antique stores. And so he's always kind of hoping for one of these stories where he comes across. Like he actually sent me on. He saw on Facebook someone found an ASM 129 for $5 at a garage sale. And like the guy was like, "Is this book worth anything?" And I was like, "Oh my god! Like these are the dreams that we have." And I know you hit an ASM 129 in one of your videos.
Yeah, the journey of that is not done because that journey. Do you mind if I just go through it real quick?
Please.
So I just a short little thing. I have not owned a car since I moved off of Long Island all the way to Seattle. So New York City, Long Island. I didn't own. I bought a car last January. The day I bought a car, I go on, I think it was OfferUp, and I saw somebody selling a carton of comics for $100. And I texted the person. I said, "Hey, I'd be willing to buy this." She said in the description, she didn't look through it. The only thing you could see at the top of the box was 2 War of the Worlds, Amazing Adventures Marvel comics from the 70s with Killraven. I said, "I'd be interested in this. I just want to know, is there any water damage?" And she messaged me back. She's like, "No, I put my hands in there. Nothing seems like it got water damage." I'm like, "Cool, I'll be there in a half hour. $100." She's like, "Great." I pick up the box. I put it in my car, take a photo, post on Instagram, unboxing this mystery carton of comics in 1 hour, be there. And what ensued was me pulling out, first off, I pull out like perfect Bronze Age books, like cleanest Bronze Age books. I pull out a Luke Cage run, 1 through 18, whatever.
Oh, that was also in the GSX box.
Yeah. So then I pull out this beautiful ASM 129, and I proceeded to lose my mind because it looked like the book had been taken out of the comic store that day. It looks so clean, and I lost my mind. So I get it pressed, cleaned, graded twice. We subbed it twice because CGC sucks. It came back a 9.2.
Wow.
Yeah. So at the time when I got that, I thought I was going to have a life-changing experience because I thought it was a 9.6, possible 9.8, and at that time a 9.6 was 15 grand and a 9.8 was 52 grand. Those were the most recent sales at that time. Alas,
2021 then?
Yeah, it was last January. So 2020, January 2022.
Still on the peak.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm going to hold on to this book. We're going to try and resub it again and get that 9.4, 9.6. I ended up trading that book very recently, along with a G.I. Joe 21 9.6 newsstand, for an original page from Marvel Spotlight 6 with a Ghost Rider transformation. Second appearance of Ghost Rider, transformation page. It's sitting at Heritage right now. It's going in their signature auction in June and expected to fetch anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000.
Dang, nice.
I like the journey of this to that is incredible, and I just like telling that story makes my heart pound.
When is that auction?
It's the Heritage June signature auction.
Okay, when we get off this, can you just send me that link? I just want to look it up and see what it looks like.
Sure, yeah. They so that $100 box of books possibly turns into $30,000 to $50,000.
That's incredible. Actually, real quick on the original art, going back to Todd, do you own any Todd original art?
So I met Todd a bunch of times. And the last time I met him was in 2009 in New York City. He did a signing at the NHL store, and there was not a lot of people there. And I asked him, I said, "Todd, I know you don't like doing sketches, but if we wait till everybody's done getting their autographs, do you mind doing a sketch?" And he looked at his kid, and his kid just shrugged his shoulders, and he said yes, and he did this for me.
Oh, that is dope.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. So this is he did it took about 20 minutes to do it, but he was so nice. And I've not taken this out of the sketchbook. I don't want anybody else to touch it. I don't want to get it framed for that reason. I'm afraid to let anybody else do anything to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an original Venom head sketch bust.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to get it.
No, I can see it. I'll say this. I actually prefer the Todd version of Venom without like the slobbery tongue.
Yeah, well, that's he prefers that too. I've heard him say
Yeah.
that before.
Like, that's why I like ASM 316 is my favorite Venom cover,
Mhm.
because it's got everything of Venom except that kind of like. Now, do I like the Slobber Tongue? Yes, I think it looks great, but I just think if I had my preference, I'm going the Todd version.
Eric Larson and the tongue and all that is great because it changed Venom even further.
Mhm.
And I think he's more menacing as an arch nemesis when Todd draws him, but I think he's more terrifying when
Mm.
Eric Larson draws him. But hey, they're both great, and
Yeah.
there's no wrong answer because Todd is Todd.
Does that, I mean, Todd's your guy. That's an original piece. Does
Mhm.
that stand above all then in your
It's
collection?
the it is the single best thing that I own as a collectible, and is if all else fails, I'll die with that.
Yeah. And
I will die with that.
that is, yeah, like bury yourself, like just hold
Yeah.
it like, your shield.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, like,
absolutely. Yeah.
um, but original art's something I've dipped into a lot over the last year because it was a natural progression for me as I
Mhm.
bought collections. Every once in a while, I'd get a piece of original art, and with that Ghost Rider page, it's kinda like, "Okay, I'm gonna whatever that makes, I'm gonna take a piece of that and buy a piece for myself to keep."
Yeah, no, we've had a few people on that have, are into the original art game. And so like I've been looking into it. I haven't bought any, but like that is definitely something I would love to do. And actually, like one thing I think about like that would kind of be an easy entry point is, so Silver Surfer is my favorite character, as I mentioned. The Silver Surfer I grew up on is Ron Lim.
Mhm.
Ron Lim still does shows,
Yeah,
and it could be, would I love an original art page from an actual comic? 100%, right? That's probably going to be a lot more expensive than I can have him just do like a simple commission, kind of similar to like the sketch that
sure.
you just showed. So,
Yeah, I will say this, Ron Lim is definitely in a way trending in the original art world right now because the two artists that seem to have blown up
hold on,
when it
hold on.
comes to original pages right now is Ron Lim and Mark Bagley.
Mhm.
And some of Ron Lim's pages from Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War have been seeing crazy record sales, like absolutely, like we're talking about maybe $3,000 in a page 2 years ago to 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I have some original pages actually. I could just show
Yeah,
them
show them
real
off.
quick. Um, so I'm a big Spawn fan, and I love me some Greg Capullo. And I got this page from Spawn '89 by
Oh,
Capullo.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's such a rad page. I'm trying to get all of it in there. Um, but yeah, Spawn's he's just destroying some demon's face right there. And then one of my favorite page that I bought recently was this Spawn. This is number 25. And
Oh,
so
nice.
so the thing about this page is Image. This is from Image X month, and it was the month that all the creators in Image swapped books. So this is actually Mark Silvestri doing
Oh,
a Spawn book, and I love Mark Silvestri.
yeah. I think he is a very underrated artist, especially from the era that we grew up in.
Yeah, yeah, and he's currently doing the best Batman book on in years right now. So I'm stoked on this. And then this is a page by my buddy Joe Benitez and inked by Mark Silvestri from Homage book Weapon Zero: The Art of Homage Studios. This is also from the 90s.
Yeah, that's looks like just pure '90s goodness right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So yeah, I've been dipping my toe into original art, and it gets really expensive. I'll just say that.
Oh yeah, no, I've watched some of the heritage auctions on some of the pieces, and yeah,
But it's invigorating.
oh yeah, I mean, you talk about rarity, like that's one of one right
Mhm,
there.
mhm.
Okay, so we were talking about selling before we kind of tangented. Have you always been a seller? Well, first of all, are you a full-time seller, or do you have another job? So you are.
I've been doing full-time selling in the way on my YouTube channel and all that since October of 2021.
20 to 21. Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you before then?
I was an assassin. No. So I used to work in the well, a twofold part. Pre-COVID, I worked in the fundraising industry doing live auctions, silent auctions, and charity events. And then obviously we had a pandemic that stopped every event in the world,
Mhm.
and I became a carrier for the USPS.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, so I was actually living in Seattle at the time, and I was delivering in Lower Queen Anne and Magnolia were my areas.
Oh, excellent. So when you were doing that stuff, did you dabble at all in selling comics, or was it?
So I've been I forget I forget what the term is, something income, not lazy income, but whatever it's called. I have been selling things.
Passive income.
Thank you. Passive income. I've been doing eBay since 99. I used to do shows when I was younger, card shows, comic shows, and I always resold things for passive income as a hobby. Um, I always wanted to do it as a full-time thing because I know I'm good at it, but until this era of having a live selling platform, I didn't know, what my calling was. And, like I said, eBay since 99, you know, I have, perfect feedback, 5,000 feedback, all that stuff. But I always wanted to have an avenue to sell stuff without owning a store. And, COVID hit and I'm watching claim sales for 6, 7, 8 months straight. And I'm like, I can do this. And little touch of ego. I said to myself, I can do this better than everybody else can. I'm more entertaining. I know how to have fun. Most of these people, they're miserable. They're like, here's a comic. It's a 9.8. I'm like, come on, it's comics. Have fun.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it actually was in our 2 episodes ago. We interviewed. His name's Joseph. He has Wolverine's comic shop on
Mhm.
IG, and we were talking about like how you go to a Comic Con and like I feel like half the booths there are staffed by these just like curmudgeony old men that are like, "What do you want? What? No, you cannot come back to the wall." And it's just like, what? Why? How did you end up? How did you end up as a comic book salesman? Like, you're right. Like, this is fun. Like, come on, guys, have some energy.
Well, it's the old guard. It's
Yeah.
the old guard, but there's also just, I mean, not to insult anybody, and this is not directed at you because you're the opposite, but there's so many people that are in a live format that have no business being alive
Yeah.
at all. I mean,
Yeah.
they talk like they're barely alive.
Yeah. It's no, it is for sure. Like there are claim sales that like I oftentimes, I'll watch a claim sale just because it's kind of fun. If you
Sure.
find the right guy that's got the right energy. But otherwise, yeah, sometimes I'm just like, this is no good. I'm leaving. So you have the Wednesday show on YouTube. That's your big deal. Do you do any other shows during the week, or is that?
No, just well, as terms of selling, I'm going to sing it. That's West Coast Wednesday Eve.
Yeah.
And that's West Coast Wednesday Eve. And then I have like kind of like Spidey hits, like Justin has his show. I do a Sunday night show called Sunday Sit Down, which goes anywhere from just me ranting about things that I love to having guests where we talk comics. And then I do a book club every month where I'll announce a book at the beginning of the month, and then the last Sunday of the month, I'll have a couple of people on. We'll get the chat lively, and we'll talk about this book for hours. Last month we did Weapon X, and this month we're doing God Country.
Nice. That's awesome. So let's see. So how long is the show? Like a Wednesday or West Coast Wednesday?
Yeah.
Is that 2 hours, 3 hours? What are we looking at?
Average run time's between 3 and 4 hours.
3 and 4 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much prep time goes into pre and how much post does a 3-hour show take?
Prep time is usually anywhere between all day. No, not all day. Definitely all day Tuesday. So I will get up, I will have my coffee, I'll watch a podcast, and then I'll start working until I'm tired, which can be 9 hours or it could be 12 hours. But I'm never not working. Honestly, I'm never not working because either I'm pricing books or I'm buying collections or I'm pulling books, and then post for the show is usually just about 8 hours work of billing and then shipping.
It's a 3-hour show. Like, how many books are we selling? Like, what do we?
I average 2 short boxes a show.
Okay.
So that's anywhere between 300 and 400 books.
Yeah, that's moving. And is there like area of specific area that of which you sell? Do you sell it all? Is there like a price range kind of you sit in between, or do you sell it all? Like where do you kind of land?
I try to pride myself, and I've had people, tell me that they're thankful for. I pride myself in doing everything. The only thing I really don't mess with is modern, like ultra modern.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have any patience for what's coming out in these last couple of years. Like
yeah.
that's no interest to me. It's barely an interest to me as a reader. But yeah, everything: Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze, Copper, Horror, DC, Marvel, Indie. I do definitely skew towards the weird, scarce, stuff that some people don't know of, and then I tell them what it is, and they're like, "Oh yes, I want that."
Awesome. So if you don't mind, and you don't need to talk about the dollars, but what's the biggest book you've sold?
Um, I mean, I've sold. I don't care. I mean, I don't mind. I've sold a couple of $3,000 and $4,000 books, slabs. I'm trying to think what the biggest. I mean, the biggest raw book that I sold that was not a Golden Age book was I sold a Batman Beyond #1. Yeah, Batman Beyond #1 newsstand for 1,000
Okay,
raw,
nice.
and that was a
Oh,
raw
nice.
book. But I mean, I've done a couple of sales with consignment sales with Grails because they have they do have that audience, and I've made a month's income from one sale. Like
Nice.
it's mind blowing to me. Like there's nothing lost on me. I am a very fortunate person that has created this thing that has supported my life. And there are days where I wrote a note on my mirror that said, "Hey, you made this amount of money selling comic books in one day." And it makes me like tear up a little bit because I should have been doing this 15 years ago, but life doesn't, you don't know where life's going to lead you until you're there.
100%. I know exactly. I know that feeling. Yeah, I'm actually, kind of going. I'm about to do a career change myself, so I know exactly. And that's why I like when people talk about like, oh, what's your 10-year plan? Where I was like, I stopped thinking about 10-year plans because 5 years ago I didn't think I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I mean, 3 years ago, I was hating everything about working for the post office, and my hatred for the US government was just being solidified day by day. And I'm like, I'm not gonna can I drop an F-bomb or no?
oh yeah, 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 go for it.
I was like, fuck this. I am done working for anybody else but me because nobody else is gonna tell me what to do anymore.
Yeah,
And
I
I
get
still have to
that.
pay taxes though, which sucks,
Yeah,
but you know.
yeah, yeah. No, okay. So you made a comment earlier. Oh, actually, before we get to that, you talk about price. How do you price a book? I'm very curious of this.
You're the third person this week to ask me that. It's a little bit of acquired knowledge, right? I
Yeah,
I made it a point, and this is a point of my channel and my pride of loving comics. I've been in probably over 100 comic book stores just in the last 2 years in the West Coast and
yeah,
in New York as well. So I'm always kind of keeping score, like what are people pricing at stores, and then I watch a lot of claim sales, and I watch keep tabs on Elite and Grails and Diamond Comic Supply, and then there's eBay. I use eBay as at least a guideline because that is the biggest open market that we can find prices for.
yeah, yep.
But I've noticed a trend which has affected my prices. Auctions are ending exactly or almost on an average exactly 20% less than buy it nows these days. And it's been that way for about 8 months. But what I do is I use that as a guideline. I know my grading, I get my approximate, and then I just cut it 25% of what everybody else is charging.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And it's worked for me real well just to save people that kind of money every week.
Yeah, very well. So that's a great kind of follow up to what I was going to ask next. You do a show on Wednesday. Obviously, you talk about you get the Sunday show and things like that. But let's just talk about Wednesday.
Mhm,
That's your big day.
mhm.
What have you done, and what do you do to kind of maintain your audience? The reason why I ask is like, it's Wednesday right now. I could jump on my phone, and I bet on Instagram there are 5 claim sales going on right now. And I'm always want to
Sure.
ask, how do you? I always was like, do you guys ever go on thinking like, oh man, there's only be 3 people here today?
So I definitely had that anxiety. I'm an anxious person, but I had that anxiety for the first couple of months I was doing it. And uh there's something to be said about being engaging, because when you're engaging people and you remember people's names and you remember the things that they like, they come back. They want to be a part of that. And so I just kept being the only thing that I know how to do is be me. And
Nice.
I will say random shit at random times. I will start singing in my sales. I do a really nasty Jonathan Davis Corn impression, and we're if
Something
we're
takes a part of you.
yeah boom da, na, na,
Yeah.
ima. And I let all my guard down. I be me. I love comics so much that I think honesty really does sell. Plus, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that I have this big thing for Todd, and the phrase, and I talk about Todd all the time. I can put up 10 Todd books in a sale, and they're gone like that because people associate that with me, and that's my intention because I love him and I love his art. So it's just I don't know. I don't. It's hard for me to quantify it other than that, and just being as weird and honest and as uh engaging as I am as a person.
Yeah, we had Mike from Lunch Money Comics on, and we were talking about like how did he grow, and he was like, what, I just think you just getting on there and being genuine and being yourself, like people today are hungry for that because we have
Mhm.
just so much stuff that is just like, oh, this is my faux Instagram image I got to portray. It's like the people are starving for, genuineness. And
Yeah.
so just being on there, being yourself, I think is yeah, no, I get that. So when you said you sell like 300 to 400 books, how many people is that in a claim sale do you think you see?
Um when I first moved from Instagram to YouTube, I was afraid that I was going to lose my 35 to, you know, somewhere in that range. I was going to lose that. And like every day, every week on YouTube, it just grew and grew. And my average sale brings 40 to 50 people on sometimes it's 50 people for an hour, sometimes it's 35 people for 4 hours.
Nice.
And I've got my regulars, but then I post a preview photo, and all of a sudden, like last 2 weeks ago when I had my last sale before what's coming up this weekend, I posted some pretty heavy variants from that era that nobody was buying variants like 15 years ago, and people were in there that I'd never seen before.
Hmm.
So it's like the preview photo brought, my milkshake brought the boys to the yard.
There you go. uh, is it just books or do you do cards on your sales too?
uh, you know, I've tried cards. I did cards on Whatnot maybe like a year and a half ago, and it was amazing. And then like when Whatnot shit the bed, I was like, all right, I'm done with it.
Mm.
I I don't really do. I have so many cards too. They're in a shelf over there. I'm gonna try and get it into the sales again, but most of the people that come to my sales want comics, or I do a lot of also like vintage comic posters and stuff like
Mm.
that. And
Okay.
people love that stuff.
Nice. Okay, so you said earlier you're buying a collection every other week. So this is something that I find amazing. Like I remember I watched a video with Drew from Como Comics, and he was like, "Right now, collections are just falling out of the sky in the Midwest." And I hear these things, and I'm just like, "How?" So first off, I'm amazed that there are so many comic book stores that essentially rely on their inventory by someone just walking in essentially and just saying, "I got this collection to sell." Like to me,
Mhm.
like the fact that that keeps happening, like, we talk about Ancient Comics, Jeff,
Yeah.
he's been in business 33 years.
Hmm.
And I've actually been in the store when someone walked in with a collection. I've seen him like
Me too.
buy it. And I just think like, how have you had this business for 33 years just waiting for someone to walk in and give you stuff that you can then sell to make your living? Like that to me is mind blowing. So tell me about your process. Like, how do you find collections? Kind of go into that whole thing.
Okay, and I'll say this in the dichotomy. There's two types of people in this world when it comes to selling collections. There's the people that go to a comic store, think like this is the place that I can sell my collection, and then there's the people that it's sitting in their garage, their closet, their attic. They don't want it anymore, but they have no clue how to get rid of it, and that's where I come in. Well, not completely, but it's a 24/7 thing. I am always refreshing and looking Facebook, Craigslist, OfferUp, anywhere, garage sales, estate sales, but it's not like I just casually look. First thing I do when I wake up, I hit my apps and I hit refresh and I check my search words and I check my alternate search words and see if anything pops up. I actually was looking at something before we went live, and I'm actually going to look on the phone to see if she replied. There was a pile of comics on one of these social media apps, and I asked her how much she wants for it. I saw that's weird. Sorry, didn't mean to get distracted.
No,
I
no, it's all
saw
good.
I saw like a Wolverine miniseries, the Frank Miller one.
Yeah.
I saw a couple things, so I messaged. But my process is just to talk to every single person that is selling anything remotely related to comics.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's one Spider-Man book. I don't care if it's four Marvel Legends action figures and I see in the background they have a CGC slab. I will message them and I will talk to them. And I'm not, the internet's filled with creepy people. I I portray a creepy person when I need to on my funny videos. I am not a creepy person, and people really appreciate that.
Nice.
You know,
So you come across these collections. We've obviously talked about some of the gems you found.
yeah.
How often are you tempted to be like, oh, I'm gonna keep this one, or like, how does that work? Because I always think like Jeff actually for Ancient Comics, like this, I've been coming in there enough that we know each other well. So every time I come in, he's like, "You want to see what I got?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And like
That's
he'll
what he
take me,
does to me too.
yeah, and he'll like take me upstairs, and he'll like the recently he got like a Batman 181 Poison Ivy, but like not just like a one like it's the cleanest copy of
Yeah.
181 I've ever seen. Did he show you that?
He told me about it. I think it was already gone when he told me about it. But
Yeah, and it seems like he's at this point now where he's like close to the kind of end of his career that he's just now, if there's a big book that comes in and he likes it, he's keeping it.
yeah, he's shown me some of those big books, and I've seen them walk in the door. And
Yeah.
yeah, we wax poetic. We talk a lot about it. He knows the channel. He knows what I do. And he's kind of fascinated by it because he's old guard, and he actually, he's like he was telling somebody about me while I was in the store. He's like, this is the future of comic book sellers. I'm like, but
Actually, I was actually thinking about stopping by there tomorrow, so I'll tell him if I do.
hell
I'll be
yeah,
like, hey,
hell yeah.
like,
So yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Keeping stuff, I keep some stuff. Like it's at my disposal as long as I'm not worried about not breaking even or making a profit. But most of these collections, I buy, and even if I'm spending $4,000 on a collection, it's just I know that in a matter of 5 or 6 books, I can break even, and then everything is whatever I want to do with it. So I just bought a couple of really expensive slabs, and I'm having a tough time trying to decide which one I want to keep. One of them is this. This
oh,
is one of the
nice.
ones that I just got an ASM 6 in a 7.0. Along with this, I got a Fantastic Four 6 in a 6.0, a Green Lantern 1 in a 5.0, and a Green Lantern 2 in a 7.5. And to be honest, this is the one I want to sell to almost break even, and I want to keep the Green Lantern 1.
Nice.
So it's always a tough choice. But the other thing is I buy so much, I know I'm going to see some of these books again. The
Yeah.
Riddler, I'm not. The first
Yeah.
Riddler, I'm never going to see again. And if I do, that just means I have one copy to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, yeah, that's all. I mean, I see, you say you're kind of always working, but like it sounds like you enjoy what you're doing. And so
very
even
much
though it
so.
is work, you're living a dream. Like you're doing it up.
I will, no matter how long this lasts, if it lasts for 30 years and I retire and move to Scotland, or if it lasts for 5 years and the economy crumbles and I have to work again, this will still be the most successful that I've ever felt in my life, and the most fulfilled I've ever felt in my life.
That's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome to hear.
Wake up every morning and I get to deal with comics. What can I really be upset about?
Yeah, like we were talking. So last week we recorded with Fausto, and we
Mhm.
were kind of going through his job at CGC, and I was like, "So you just kind of research cards all day?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Damn, that's awesome. That's
Yeah, no.
awesome."
So, and it's funny, like my work history goes in and out of the comic industry. I worked for a nonprofit in the comic industry. I've worked at comic stores. I've worked cons before, and I've never felt as fulfilled as I am doing this myself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love hearing that. So you've got a big event this weekend. This is like kind of you're called. So I will tell you. So we are a few weeks out ahead. So when this comes out, your event will already have happened. But I'm still very curious to hear about it. So it's called the VengerCon.
It's
which,
called.
By the way, we didn't mention.
It's
West
called
Coast Avengers is such an awesome name.
I do have to correct you. It's Davengers.
Oh, Davengers. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I because my name's Dave, and so I pronounce Davengers. Obviously, if you look at it, you're like Davengers, but when you realize my name's Dave, it makes more sense. So this weekend, April 22nd and 23rd, I'm pulling off something that has kind of been devastating in me for a long time, and it's going to be a Comic-Con.
Just tell them that I said so. Sorry.
It's okay. It's going to be a Comic-Con on my YouTube channel for 2 days, and it's going to be almost 12 hours a day, so I'll be losing my mind by Sunday evening. And I'm inviting some of my friends who are comic sellers. I'm inviting some of my friends who are I'm having a couple of comic artists come on to do talks, but it's going to be basically an idea of a online Comic-Con where 1 hour it's this person selling with me, the next hour it's another person. I'm going to have 2 stores on, one a day, selling with me as well.
Nice. Well, who do we know? Like some people that are on there. I think is Manu on there. I think he said
Manu is opening up the con with me. Justin was supposed to be on there, but he has a family obligation that he probably can't escape from. Destiny City Comics, which is the Tacoma store I told you about. Ethan's going to be on selling on Sunday. Bronze Age Batcave, which is one of my favorite stores.
Yeah, I follow him. Yeah.
Yeah, Damon and the store, they're going to be on with me. My guests are going to be Joe Benitez, who is a creator and artist.
I saw you posted that like right before we jumped on.
Yeah, Joe Benitez and Jim Rugg on Sunday, who did Hulk Grand Design and is the co-creator and co-host of the YouTube podcast Cartoonist Kayfabe. And so it's really exciting. It's my way of like, I'm doing this so I can promote my friends and kind of really bring this community of the West Coast Avengers in such a way that like we're just having a great time, and people are selling books, people are buying books. I did merch for this, which I've never done really any merch beyond stickers, but you see the shirts, and I did an enamel pin for the first time.
That's cool.
And then everybody that purchases something is getting
very cool, a lanyard.
Yeah, a lanyard, yeah. And
do I get that lanyard?
Oh,
there he is.
Hey, there he is. You got to buy something.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh no, glad you made it on. So we're talking about Dave's got an event this week, and obviously this episode will air after it happens, but it's called DavengerCon. So it's like he's doing an online Comic-Con essentially.
Yeah, on my YouTube channel. I have 11 different people selling and some other guests, and I'm also doing a charity raffle, supporting 2 charities. One is the Laidler Music Money Foundation. It's a scholarship foundation my buddy started at his daughter's high school. And then the other charity is called Tiny Changes. It is in the memory of a friend of mine that I lost, and it helps young kids and teens dealing with mental health crisis and helping support their creative sides.
Awesome. That's excellent.
Yeah. So
now, is this something that, is something you're going to do once a month, every year? Like what's the frequency you're thinking about on this?
If it's as successful as I hope it is, and success just means people enjoying themselves. I plan to do it every year. Once a month would probably give me an early death. I mean, like I've spent the better part of the last 2 weeks planning this, and it's a lot to wrangle people, and I have a designer. So my buddy Joe does all my graphic design, and I basically give him, I pluck ideas from my head, and he makes them happen, like the See Todd Buy Todd sticker.
Yeah.
And and so it's like if I tried to pull this off once a month, I'd end up in, I'd have a panic attack and then run away and bury myself.
Real quick here, Dave. So JP is a big Todd fan as well. Could you show him that Venom sketch that Todd got for you?
Oh yeah, I got this in 2009. Todd did this sketch for me. Yeah, it was at the NHL store in New York City. I used to work a couple blocks away, and there was nobody at the signing, so I waited till everybody was done, and he did this Venom sketch for me.
That's awesome.
So, my
Oh, man,
prized
that'd be great.
possession.
Yeah, we were talking
Yes,
about
that
when
would be a
Dave's
grail.
gonna die with that thing on his chest like a shield of an
Yeah.
old knight.
I could sell everything else that I own. I would never sell that.
Yeah,
Ever. It just
That's
wouldn't happen. Yeah.
That's pretty
JP, also
awesome.
funny coincidence. So obviously his name is West Coast Davengers, so he's on the West Coast. I found out like Dave literally lives about 45 minutes away, if even that, 45 minutes away
Yeah.
from me.
Maybe like 30
Oh, yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Where are you located, JP?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Where in Pennsylvania?
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, home of the Erie Otters.
Yes. You're. I guess you're into hockey.
I used to be a huge hockey fan. I grew up in Long Island, so like the East Coast, I know every team. Like I could, you could name a town in Saskatchewan, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I know who plays there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I was a big Penguins fan. I used to
man.
watch. It was Bob Johnson was the coach back in the '90s before he passed. One of my dad's good friends was good friends with Johnson, so he would get us into the. It was the Igloo at the time.
Yeah.
We would watch him practice before the games and just sit there and watch him practice. We always had to go in a suit because we were with the coach. And then people looked at us in the game in our full suits on. I was like 10 years old. My brother was 8, and we're in full suits. And we're like at a hockey game in a full suit because we were with the coach earlier in the day. We didn't sit with the coach by any stretch, but I'm like, Dad. And he's like, that's what we have to do.
Well,
So I didn't complain. I got to see Lemieux and
Yager.
Yep.
Yeah, those were the days. That was when I loved hockey, and I could talk to you about hockey and my experiences with hockey for probably 4 hours. And I used to collect autographs on Long Island, and Jaromir Jagr, I knew him, and all this crazy stuff.
I mean, you guys, the Islanders, are they in the same? I'm not a huge hockey fan. I mean, I haven't been for a while, but I follow the Penguins. But are the Islanders or the Rangers? Which one's in our division?
They changed the divisions around, so I'm not sure. I know the Rangers, Islanders. So Rangers, Islanders, Devils, Caps, Lightning, and then the Penguins are in the East, but I don't think they're in the same conference or the same division, unless they are. Now.
We played one or the other in many of the playoff games in the '90s, and then recently, I think it was last year that we lost to the Rangers.
Yeah. You guys did lose to the Rangers,
but I mean, there's a lot of history there between both those teams. The Penguins. I mean, that was the first major sports team I got to watch win a championship, even though I was alive when the Steelers won.
Sure.
I mean, I was there, but I don't remember it. But I got to see the Penguins win when they beat the North Stars. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then the Pens were one of those teams that they never were really that bad for that long, because after Lemieux and Jagr left, it was the Crosby,
and Malkin show.
It was a Crosby.
They got Malkin, Fleury, and Crosby all like in 3 years. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And Crosby was the last hockey player that I snuck out or sought out for an autograph of.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, I've spent time. I said, like, I lived in Pittsburgh. He's probably him, McCutcheon, and Polamalu, 3 of the biggest stars in town that spend a lot of time with the kids and do a lot of charity work.
Yeah.
And Crosby's one of those guys. He's just a really good guy. And I know Malkin is too. Malkin does a lot with Ronald McDonald House and stuff like that. So it's great to have great sports teams, but also to have great members of those sports teams that promote the good things about.
It's a blue collar city. You can't have guys that are not part of the city be part of your sports teams. Like between Pittsburgh and Chicago, it's the 2 last blue collar cities in the country.
Real quick, just as you said, Pittsburgh's a blue collar city. So JP and I've talked about this because he's a big Steelers fan. Here in Seattle, I'm a huge Seahawks fan.
Sure.
So in 2005, the Seahawks and the Steelers met in the Super Bowl. And I have told JP the refs robbed us. Even the head ref has come out since and said like he has nightmares because of the game was called so bad. Anyways, what was funny, I was going to say, since you said blue collar city, prior to that Super Bowl, I can't remember if it was Sports Illustrated or something like that, was like, this is why Pittsburgh has to win the Super Bowl. Because it's just this blue collar city and they don't have much else to look forward to. And all these things are like, in Seattle, you got all these things going on. Well, they're fine. Yeah. You don't need to win a Super Bowl. No big deal to you guys. I just remember hearing that and laughing.
I moved here the year that the Seahawks lost to the Patriots, and I am a
Ugh.
lifelong Patriots hater because
Ugh.
I'm a New York guy. Why I could never like the Patriots.
Yeah, so I actually went to the Super Bowl in New York when they beat the Broncos.
Yeah.
And then I was actually in Arizona, and I had the same guy we bought tickets from the previous year got us tickets again to the Patriots Super Bowl. And then there was this whole fiasco, and we ended up losing the tickets. And so I didn't go to the game, and I actually ended up flying back that night. Yeah, in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I was heartbroken as it was watching. I couldn't imagine if I was there. That would have been awful.
I've never existed in a place that was quieter than after that play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like the only thing that comes close to it is like the night, and this is harsh, but it's the night of 9/11. Like, New York was quiet, so quiet, and then when the Seahawks lost the Super Bowl in that play, the Seattle was like you could shout from one end of the city to the other, and somebody would hear it.
Yeah,
that was. I don't know what the rationale was, and not have what's his name run that ball through the goal.
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, it was politics. It was definitely politics. There was no way that it was a rational call. It was sports politics that stopped that Marshawn from getting that.
Yeah.
So who they want?
It.
They wanted
Lynch,
wanted the quarterback.
They wanted Russell. Yeah, they wanted Russell Wilson. Yeah.
He should have ran it in then. Why the hell are we trying to throw it? I mean, I hate the Patriots.
This is.
I hate the Patriots too.
You guys are gonna get me going on all this stuff. Let's
divert back. Let's bring it back in.
Yeah, let's bring it back. So
wait. This is a sports show, right? I came on to a sports show. There's not comic books here.
So JP, I was talking to Dave before you came on. Obviously, you and I talk about, and you do it more often than me. Going to these antique stores, going to these wherever, and finding gold. Dave, did you watch the video I sent you earlier today?
I didn't get a chance.
Oh, yeah,
that was your video.
That's his video.
You found that.
Yeah, and he's got, so he's like, he was saying that box, $600 it cost him, and he's gotten $8 to $10 grand out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was a full Claremont run besides 101. It was all the Silver Age. It was the bat keys. There was like I said, there was a Luke Cage #1 in there. There was a First Defenders in there. It was just book after book after book.
Well, I didn't see the video. So if you just give me the synopsis, you found this online or in an antique store and just bought the whole thing. How did it come about?
I had bought some stuff off a guy that lives in Olympia, which is about 30 miles south of me. And it was like a bunch of books and a bunch of boxes. And then I gave him my, I was like, dude, hit me up next time you get more books. I think what he does is he like clears out people's houses and stuff like that. And I don't think in an eviction sense, but I think it's just like he's connected with a lot of people that buy and sell and clear out estates. And he hit me up. He's like, yeah, I got piles of books. Come down. I was like, okay. And I went to his house and I walked in and there was just piles of like, I think I put a picture of it in the video, or there's like piles of
there's the different piles.
Yeah. And I saw two books. I saw the Batman, the 251. 251?
Yep, 251, the Joker cover.
And then I saw X-Men 96. And I was like, you know what? I'll just take everything. And the funny thing about it was I went to the ATM before I went to his house. I took out exactly $600. I said, Ray, what do you want for all this? And he's like, make me an offer. I'm like, no, give me your number. How much? And I swear to you, he said $600. And I was just like, well, that's what's in my pocket. Okay. And I went home and I knew that there was going to be good books in there, but I had no clue the GSX was in there. I had no clue the 94 was in there either.
Yeah. And then JP, the other gold story he's got another similar story for $100.
You have two of them.
He's got multiple, but
and they almost happen almost exactly a year apart.
Yeah, and so the other one, $100, and in it he found a ASM 129 that ended up grading out at 9.2.
Holy
he
shit.
Since traded for a piece of original art of Marvel Spotlight 6, the second appearance of Ghost Rider, where it's a transformation page. It's at Heritage in their signature auction going up next month for, the guess is $20,000 to $50,000.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't look at this as me being, this is just fate or fortune. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
When did this happen?
The ASM one was January of 2022. And then the the GSX one was a
21.
week before 2022 ended, so it was literally like 4 or 5 months ago. So it all happened within the confines of 1 year.
I dream about stuff like that, like
Me too.
That- I saw somebody just posted on the Facebook comic book group that he bought a ASM 129. He found at a garage sale for $6. I have no idea the condition on it. Looks good, so it's probably it's at least a 5, if not a 6. So I mean, for $6, I mean, I thought I would just find them all the time when I started a year ago. I thought, but no, I'm going to find one, and I just kept trying, and that's crazy. I mean, I guess just having the right hookup,
you live in a very comics rich area, like the areas around Pittsburgh and surrounding. There's still a lot of comic stores there. There's a reason why our area in Washington is so comics rich, is because between Seattle and Tacoma, there used to be 25 comic stores, and we have one of the biggest military bases in the country. So there is
Mark Jewelers.
And there's Mark Jewelers, but just in general, from what I've understood, is that areas with a lot of military presence have more comics because soldiers always read comics. It's a thing that's why Mark Jewelers exists. And so when you live in a comics rich area that you don't know, could be your next door neighbor could have an attic full of comics.
Yeah.
It's just
a couple weeks we're going to have, now I'm I'm like west or east of Erie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, there's the closest comic book store to me is 50 miles away. That's a decent one then, but I have a lot of antique stores to try. And then there'll be a lot of garage sales coming up and neighborhood flea markets and stuff. So that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I watch Lunch Money Comics. He goes to a bunch of flea markets and he finds, all kind of good stuff there. So I'm hoping this year to hit it pretty hard. Because now I know what I'm looking for.
Biggest piece of advice I can give you: get your ass up as early as possible. Be the first person at the garage sale, first person at the flea market, and just use those. I've got the Terminator eyes. I'm scanning every single thing at all times. Yeah. It's what works for me the best. And talk to people, have conversations with people that have comics. Ask them if they have any more. Ask them if you can go see them. Ask them if what. Just talk.
Yep.
So Dave, I have a request for you.
Okay.
You and I live 30 minutes apart. We've talked about we could actually be friends in person. You'd be my first comic book friend in person.
And a 3D person, right?
Yeah, in 3D. Yeah, so actually, Dave, JP and I have actually never met. We met online. So anyways, next time or one of the times in the future when you have one of these similar situations where you find a box and it's going to have some good stuff, but you don't know what the good stuff, and you're going to go online or go on air and just like you did in the GSX. If you're down, let me know. I'll roll down. I'll jump, and I just want to celebrate with you. I'm not asking for anything.
Sure.
I want to react with it because that experience is so fun to watch. Like I would love to just be a part of it. So if that is at all possible, I am in. Let me know.
I'm totally down. I'm so down for that. I aside from the selling part, and aside from even just like the comic book collector and reader in me, I used to travel for work when I worked in events, and the hunt. It's more. I sometimes don't care about the book. It's the fact that I hunted, I got it, and I found it, and I get to have this reaction because I'm a very excitable person.
We have talked about this. Like, you could be a billionaire and just go like, I want to buy any book I want to buy. And I'm just going to keep buying. Obviously, that would have some fun to it, but it would not be as fun as hunting and discovering, as you said. And the other thing I'll say too, like what I think is really cool about, and maybe I'm alone in this, but at least it seems to me, for me, with comic books, it's a hobby where I don't necessarily get jealous of like JP getting a new big book or of you getting a new big book. It's fun to just be a part of that story. Sure. And, like JP he's the one that my ASM 129 JP sent to me, right? The GSX one I sent to him or something. I can't remember which ones I sent to him. Yeah. But like, it's just fun being a part of it. And so it's like, I don't need to be jealous. Like I don't get jealous. And it's just such a fun hobby to just be involved and talking to people like, oh, I got this. And oh, I got this. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, because everybody has their own, you collect what you like. So most of us like similar things, but Rohan's more into the cards than I am. So, but we can all appreciate that different side of what we collect. So it's just fun to be a part of it itself, hunting and getting those grails and or finding a book that like something that you wouldn't find normally, and it's like, wow, look how this is rare. I don't really want it, but I can turn it into something else I want. That's normally what I find. I don't find any GSX ones or ASM
Well,
129.
and I told him, I this is a 24/7 thing for me. So I'm always looking for books. I'm always looking to buy collections. So it never stops. But there have been multiple times in the last year and a half where just like that, like I'll buy a collection and I'll be going through it and I'll be like, I'll see a book that it's not familiar to me and I'll look at it and I'll be like, what is it with this book? And I'll find out it's a secret $700 book.
Yeah.
Well,
let me ask, where
it
do you
happens.
check that at? Because when I would go to antique stores, I would use Key Collector to check if I had signal. Most of the time, there's no signal, and I'm just flying blind, right? But then I go home and I want to sell that book, and I know dealers always give you half of what it's valued at. I've dealt with that for 20 some years. But I go on eBay to sell it, let's say, because it wasn't a book I wanted. It's just something that I know has value based on Key Collector, and they're all raws. There's no graded books, but eBay has it for like $10, and Key Collector's like $200 for the book. I'm like, what the hell's what am I missing here?
It's one of the biggest disparities in just the collectibles world is that like eBay's a good barometer for some things and a horrible barometer for other things, and Key Collector's skewed. They don't update their prices often enough to really reflect anything. And at the same time, it's like we all know what's a book worth or what's a collectible worth, only what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Right.
So it's tough because there are some instances where I'll try and I really, I really try to use multiple sources, and I told Rohan.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what it is. I want to call you Rohan, and then I want to call you the Rohirrim. Rohan.
You're not the first. You're not the first.
But anyway, Rohan's. We were talking about it, and it's just like it's really hard to price books sometimes, but when you go to stores and you watch claim sales, you get a better sense as to what certain books will sell for. And eBay buy it now sold prices are the best barometer for at least getting an idea. I don't go by auction prices. Auction prices are skewed for so many reasons. They're stupid people putting books up for auction that end at 2 a.m. They're people putting up books that they say near mint in the description, and you look at it and the cover's detached. So these buy it nows have a better barometer because they're usually all in line with each other. Like, for example, this ASM, the 7.0, I priced it at 3,400. I've seen it sell anywhere between 37 and 32. So I went in the middle because if somebody offers me $3,000 for it, I'm going to take it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like if you have that kind of, not margin, but you got room to sell, like you get a book for $50 and someone's at 10. It's like, if I really want it, like I'll take $3,000 for that book. Right. But $10, I'll just keep the damn thing. Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But $50, I'm like, why is it like, you might see one sell for 50 on eBay, but then yours you put on for $40 because you just want to get rid of it. And you got no takers. I'm like, I don't get that. So it's hit or miss sometimes on eBay. And I've been doing a lot of online auctions, so I don't really actually know the condition of the books till they come in. I can see them online, and I try to check eBay to see where it's selling at because it's usually not a book I want, but it's one I know I can flip to get something else. And sometimes they sit, sometimes they don't. So that's
it's tough. It's tough. And Heritage is a great source for at least market on high-end slabs and then just cut 20% off, and that's your price because they charge 20. Yeah, the buyer's premium. So it's it's the toughest part of my job, but it's also like the most rewarding because I buy books, I buy collections, I can price books at whatever I want. If I wanted to sell this book to you for $1,000 right now, I wouldn't lose money.
Yeah.
So
how do you do that when I probably missed it, so if you're repeating it, but buying a collection, like I went to someone's house who had a collection online, and it was a small house, looked like there's 6 kids running around. It looked like it was a second marriage. I knew they were just trying to get rid of the stuff.
Sure.
And I'm trying not to lowball anybody on it, but again, I don't know what I'm going to sell for on eBay.
Of course.
And I know that a dealer is going to give you 10 cents on a dollar for that stuff or 20 cents on a dollar. So I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle, but not try to fork over thousands and then be out the money. So if you start well with a $600 buy to turn it into 10 grand, you definitely got margin to say,
course.
I can mess around a little bit. So is that how it started for you? You got lucky or not lucky, but again, it takes knowledge to see that and make
sure.
Right? Right.
The first couple collections I bought, I didn't get hosed on or anything. They just weren't great collections, but they all had books that I was like, okay, I know what that's worth. I know what I could sell it for, so I can at least spend X amount of $100. But now I'm at a point where like the buyer always has all the power. As somebody selling a collection, you have no power whatsoever. You know why? Because you could tell me you want $5,000 for your collection, and you know what I'll do? Walk away.
Yeah.
And you are left looking for another buyer. And then when nobody else wants to buy it, who are you going to call? Not Ghostbusters. You're going to call me back because you know I was really interested. And I don't try to flex it on people to lowball them, but I do try to hold it to a place where I know I can make money. And certain situations call for brutal honesty. I sell. I keep a lot. These books go to homes that people love comics, and I have to make money. Nobody's going to give you as much as I will, and 9 times out of 10 that works.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. Like, I don't think, just like you said, you can walk out the door if their price is too high.
Yeah.
They also, in their own mind, they don't need to sell you a book for your price, right?
True.
So, like, I don't feel bad if I haven't, but if I was to find a book, let's just say my neighbor was like, hey, Rohan, I heard you sell comics. Yeah, I have some. Do you want $100 for this? And it turns out he's got Superman 1. Like, I will happily take that for $100. Because, like, everyone's got a smartphone now, and it takes 3 seconds of research to know what a Superman 1 has sold for, even within the ballpark.
Yes.
And so it's like, I'm not going to feel bad if I score it for $100. Like,
but those same people will look online and see what the selling is for, not the sold. And then, because that's what happened to me. I went into that collection and they had probably 10 long boxes. It was a huge collection and it was good stuff in there. And I picked out and I maybe filled a half a long box full of good books and said, I don't want the whole collection. I just want these. And they were like, nope, we want it all. Yeah. And I kicked myself because I basically told them all the good books that were there. So they could then piece them out.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm saying. It goes both ways, right? Like,
but they were trying to tell me, oh, that book, The Silver Surfer's in that one. I go, so that doesn't mean that Silver Surfer number 2 from volume 2 is worth volume 1 number 2 price.
It's
exactly.
That's what they didn't know.
Exactly. They may do their research and they may be misinformed, and then that's when, like Dave said, you walk out.
I walked out and I kept an eye on the collection. Eventually sold because they said they were going to take it to some big dealer in Erie, and I'm like, he's going to give you 10 cents on a dollar, but he has,
at the end of the day,
books.
for the transaction to happen, you both have to agree on a price, which means they agree to sell it and you agree to buy it for that price. So as far as I'm concerned, if those two things are met and there was no dishonesty involved in that situation, I think you should feel totally fine with what you got.
Two people have to be happy in a situation for it to work out.
Yeah.
And
like David said, like he meets so many people that are like, they just want to clean out their attic. And they're not looking to do the work it takes to maximize their profit here.
Well, I told the story before, and Dave, I'll tell you this one as well. This one kind of made me feel bad because the way it went down. But I drove like an hour and a half to see a collection, and it was the woman had it online. It was in like containers, like clear containers, like Sterilite containers.
Tubs,
tubs. So I called, I messaged her and I said, hey, can you give me more pictures of that stuff before I drive all the way out there? And she's like, no, it's already boxed up. I'm like, crap. So I go out there and I'm going through it and it's junk. There's really nothing in there. I found maybe 10 books. And I said, hey, I don't really want this whole thing. I said, I'm telling you, she was trying to raise money for her son and whatnot. I said, listen, there's really no value here. And she talked to me about other toys that he had to sell. And I said, listen, those G.I. Joe, the He-Man, that's all your money. Here's a guy I know that buys his stuff. Call him. I said, you really have nothing in these comics. You might be able to get, maybe a couple $100 for them, but there's really nothing good. I said, I'll give you like $30 or $40 for these 10 books. I said, at least for my drive out here. And when I got home, I got a message from her saying the one Spider-Man book I bought, somebody was on his way to buy it from her for $150. Now, I know it had some value, but the condition that one was in didn't have the value that she thought. And she's like, I was like, I did not. I spent like an hour and a half with you telling you what you needed to sell, how to make money, who to call. And I mean, maybe the guy would have given her more money, but I got there first. And she took the deal, and she was fine with it. I felt good that I gave her good information. And I was like, damn it, I did not want that to go down that way, to get a message after the fact. Like,
some people don't. I mean, that is the problem with buying comics from people, or collectibles in general, from people that don't actually know collectibles. They think that they know how to look it up. And I could literally fill up 6 hours talking about stories about different versions of these, incidents where I got, one person who's like, oh, this is worth X and X and X. I'm like, let's sit here and talk about how you're going to make that money. And then by the end of that, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll sell you everything. And I try not to ever lie to people. There's certain situations where I will not tell them certain things about the aspects of books. Like, I'm not going to sit there and explain the nuances to Mark Jewelers to people. It's not worth my time. They won't get it. And then I'm just going to end up, paying the same price. But there was one collection that I bought last year that I looked through. It was like 34 long boxes. So I was at the dude's house for a couple hours, and it's a psychology. This whole thing about I'm sure anybody that's a big business person will tell you about the psychology of business, but the psychology of buying collections is also the psychology of looking through somebody's collection and like seeing how they collected. And this dude had everything in alphabetical order. And the first box that I looked at with the A's, I get like the third section was Albedo, and it's like Albedo 1, and then it skips to 5, 6, 7, 8. And I look at him and I'm like, so where's the Albedo 2? And all of the blood drained from this dude's face. Like, he looked at me in a way that, like, how did I know what book was missing from there? And he goes in the other room and he comes back with an Albedo 2, which is, first Usagi Yojimbo, which is rarer than a Turtles 1. There's 2,000 copies or something like that. He's like, yeah, we were looking up some of these books, and he's like, I didn't know what this book was, and now I know what it's this crazy book. And I'm like, yeah, it's really hard to find. Long story short, the next day I came back to his house after negotiating with him. He went to rehab. His fiance was like, yeah, we took him to rehab this morning, and I ended up buying like a couple of long boxes in the Albedo for $5,000. But the icing of the cake on this, there was one tub that we didn't look through. And I was with one of my friends, and we had looked through every box again because I wanted a second pair of eyes to see if I missed anything. And I was pointing out to him, I was like, there is a run of Batman Adventures in there that's missing a chunk of it. It was like 1, 2, and then it skipped to like 15. I'm like, there is a Batman Adventures 12 somewhere in this collection. And the last thing that I looked through, there was this tub, and it had a bunch of Savage Sword of Conans, a bunch of other magazines. And I saw one Batman Adventures, and I said, you know what? I'm not even going to look through this pile. I said, I'll buy this box, the Albedo, and this pile for $5,000. And I got home, and the Batman Adventures 12 was in there, and it 9-8'd. And it was just like, yeah. And it was one of those things where, like, I could look through these books and then feel guilty about that 12 being in there and buying it for nothing. Or I could take a chance that it's in there, buy everything, and I won. And it's just like that. I didn't feel that on my conscience because I truly didn't know it was in there. I had a hunch, but I didn't know.
Yeah, but you gave $5,000. It wasn't like you gave $500.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like that's
and the 5,000 was like based on the fact that this Albedo is a $4,000 book in the shape that it's in, or a $5,000 book. So I was buying that because I wanted that. And
that collection I looked at had some Usagi Jimbo ones, and I was like trying to figure out which one was the money one. So that doesn't come around very
so
often.
hard to find. I mean, that's kind of my specialty, is like looking at collections with weird stuff, because I've always managed to find like a big book. Like I found a Caliber Presents earlier this year for $1, the first
Get out
appearance
of
of
it.
the Crow. Yeah,
Crow. Yep.
yeah.
I found Bone #1, second print though, and I found Bone #2 first print.
Nice.
And I there's some Clarion, Clarion University.
Oh yeah.
It's like Western PA, but like a little north of Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
Went into a antique store, found them both. I mean, I paid like I think $70 for the two of them, but I ended up getting like 300 for them. So that was like a big score for me.
Sure.
Finding at that time, like I hoping it was a #1. I was like, man, I would have made it if I had that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you ever find a Turtles #1 first print, you're just it's a 1 in a million shot to find that in a way.
I'm expecting to find that first script that was handwritten. Right?
Well, there's only two of them. There's only two of them.
Good luck.
And we know Dinesh of what is it, Bad Ideas or something.
Bad
like that.
Idea,
He's got one of them. Yeah, he's got one of them.
I'm gonna find the other one.
I actually have a Turtles first print coming to me this year, a #1.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Is it raw or graded?
It's a 9.0.
Nice. Oh, wow.
And it's pressable, so I'll probably have that pressed. That's a grail for me, and it's secure. It's in a place that I know I'm getting it. It's just a matter of time before the person bequeaths it to me.
Yeah. We should try to get towards the end here, but I wanted to ask, so we were talking about like specific book, you bought that collection for the Albedo. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of common the case? Like you buy a collection of, we'll just say 1,000 books. You bought the 1,000 because there's 3 books or there's 5 books or X number of books that are going to make you the money.
Yeah, you can't pull them out because they'll know. So you have to that's the thing. That's the thing I run into, and I've learned that I haven't bought a full collection like you're saying, but you can't pull them out. You just gotta.
Well, I try to pride myself on the fact that I don't want to do that to somebody. Yeah, there's like, it does not serve me well to put somebody in a position that I would hate to be in just over a bunch of money. Like, it's not like I'm going to spend $1 million to buy a collection for one book, but what does it matter? Like if I'm spending $1,000 on 10 long boxes because I know there's one book in there, because there's going to be more books in there by default.
I think you made a good point about like just thumbing through a few, you kind of learn the psychology of their collection. And so you can kind of almost predict some of the big ones you're going to run into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I kind of
or if they pull them out, right? Then you like that guy, right? You check that.
I've walked away from collections because I'm like, what is this ASM run doing without 3 books in there? There's no 300, there's no 316, and there's no 298 or 299. And I've walked on collections for that because I've told people outright, I'm like, you pulled all the good books out. Oh, we didn't do that. I'm like, yeah, you know, and it's always a weird thing when you do that to somebody because they're like, how does this person know what I have? Like, you know, I'm a collector.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to do that stuff. So I mean, it's being personable and not, just trying to do the right thing and be honest, but at the same time, like, you don't know if they're trying to screw you over either. So you're just trying to not lose your ass on it, but at least, walk away and make a couple bucks on it because you spent the time.
And the thing is, like, if you like come into contact with a collection and the person's being honest with you and it doesn't look big to you, just be honest with them. Be like, look, it always works when you say, I buy, I sell what I don't want, but there's a lot of stuff in here I want. And that's what I truly do. I've built my collection up with these keys and the like Golden Age books because I've taken an entire collection from somebody instead of just cherry picking the keys. Because then, you never know what you're going to find or what's going to be a big book 6 months later that you found in that collection.
Yeah, it'd be fun to like, oh, that just hit. Oh, let me go check my long boxes to see if that's in there. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
On that note, Dave, do you have like long boxes of like run filler books that you just like, I can't sell these? Like, what am I going to do with these?
So it's a 2-part yes and no. I have a guy who buys bulk for me, generally between 50 and 75 a long box. And so that always works out. But I also got a collection last year that has full runs of stuff and multiple copies bagged and never touched. And it's just like, yes, it's run filler, but when I'm doing 2 cons this year. Those are going to be $2 books that are in $10 to $15 condition.
Yeah, nice.
I know people jump all over that.
Yep. You need an X-Men book. I got you.
you. Yeah.
But yeah, it there is a lot of people that get stuck with that stuff, and I'm just smart enough to know who to sell what to who.
Yeah.
And did you go to Emerald City Comic Con?
I haven't been to. I was in Emerald City 2 years ago. I used to go yearly because I live 4 blocks from the convention center, so I would just walk there. But yeah, not anymore. I honestly don't love that Comic-Con anymore.
Dude, I went this year because we got to use the pod to like get a content creator pass, which is great. I'll go for free any day.
Sure.
Dude, I think there was 5 comic book dealers there.
And there was no artists there that were worth a damn.
No, there was no, like the best one was like Randy Emberlin, which he's done some cool Spider-Man stuff, but it's nothing. But like, and then I was told you like, I don't know if this is particular to Emerald City Comic Con, but like the 5 dealers that were there were all selling at prices as if it was still peak 2021, and I was like, this is like ASM 129 raw 4.0 $3,000, and it's like, bro. Like I can get a higher graded one graded for
$1,000,
third of that price. Yeah.
You know what I've been watching? Do you guys know the Comics Den? They're in Florida. There's I think it's a husband and wife, young couple. She's a redhead. He's dark hair. Real nice couple, but they live in Florida, and they go to these like antique stores that have comic book swap shows in the back room. And I think like there's all kind of deal like collectors like us that have this that they're getting rid of because they want to buy something else. They don't want their X-Men, they want Spider-Man. So all they kind of swap it. And there's like 15 dealers in there set up with tables, and it's like I don't think there's a cost, or maybe it might be $50 a guy, nothing big, to use that space. And that's what you guys need, is like more of a, not you need, but I would rather see more of those than the shows with all the toys. I mean, they're cool to see, and the cosplay's cool, but I just want to go to a comic book show, right? And a swap,
100%. I did a show last year in Tacoma called Grit City Con, and it was about 80% just comics, and it was fantastic. So
what's that called? Grit City Con? I gotta look that up.
Yeah, it's in November. I'm doing it again this year, and I'm doing Summer Con in June.
Oh yeah, Summer Con. I did go to that one, and that's a good show. Like that's was like lots of comic book dealers there.
Yeah, if you go this year, I'll meet you there.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely plan on.
Your first 2D comic friend or 3D comic
3D.
friend. There you go.
Maybe I'm 2D.
You never know.
But I will sell
poster.
I will say this. I'll tell you one last funny story. Last year I did 2 garage sales at my house, and the intent of that garage, for the most part, was to put out long boxes of dollar books and just sell on my driveway. And the second one I did, a lady came up to my house, an older lady, and she's like, "Oh, you like comics?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's what I love," and blah blah blah. And she's like, "I have a couple old comics at home, and I think one's a Spider-Man." She said, "Do you want me to bring them by? You can see what they are." And I said, "Sure." In the back of my mind, I'm like, "This lady's not coming back." 2 hours later, she shows up on my driveway, not with this one, but with a copy of ASM 6 in like a 3.0 shape. And she's like, "Is this one, this one's probably good?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the first appearance of the Lizard." She's like, "Well, look, if you want it, make me an offer." I'm like, "I don't know, $300." And she's like, "Sure." And she shows up to my house with an ASM 6 to sell me at my garage sale. It's just like,
did you give her like 300 books and say, "Here, take these, you're about a piece"? Or trade.
I should have, but no, I was like, this is serendipity. This is you can't make shit like that up. Like,
no,
I don't know. Maybe I'm a magnet for comics, but I'm not going to deny anything that comes my way.
Yeah,
it's perseverance, it's luck, and it's just being in the right place at the right time. But it's not because of luck, it's because of perseverance is more so than not. So there's a little bit of luck to it too, but if you weren't out there doing that, you wouldn't have run into that, right? Stuff doesn't just fall from the sky. Maybe some people get lucky, but for the most
or
part,
they get unlucky and a Turok number 198 falls in the sky and kills them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm gonna be doing that. I got a bunch of garage sales coming up, and hopefully I'm gonna put up my couple long boxes of my dollar books, and some old lady's gonna bring me, ASM #1, and I'll definitely
there you go. Well,
$10.
I could tell you stories about stuff like that happening, but we'd be here all night.
I know that's the fun part about this is we say it's an hour, but we lie. So we go.
Yeah,
we can talk all night about this stuff. So
yeah,
I get it.
yeah, and I love it. It's like the thing about creating this community in my channel was to bring people to a space where we could talk about books. And I'm not a market guy. I could give two fucks less about the top 10 books of the week. That has no bearing on my life. I want to talk about art. I want to talk about story. I want to talk about finding these books, the joy that they bring us when we get that, pull that book out and it's like, oh yeah, I just got this book. This is so cool.
Yeah, when you stare at it and you go, wow.
Yeah, like never knew. One of the most joyous things we talk about our friend Manu. How me and him became friends was the love of this. Was the love of Wizard magazine. I love it. I love this stuff.
I wish I missed Wizard. I didn't start collecting them until I think it was number 9 or 10, and I had a couple left, but I didn't have one. And there was a lot of funky.
You'll get one eventually.
I may have had a
198 newsstand. That's what I'm.
I may have had. I mean, I definitely had Wizards, but like beat to.
Sure, we read that.
Right?
Shit,
I mean, I went through. I just remember even as a kid, like, oh, what is Fantastic Four #1 worth? It's like, oh man, like so.
Or what do they say it's worth?
Yeah,
Wizard used to have good artwork, like the people that would send in fan mail.
Yeah, there's some guys that their first published art was that. Like I forget I want to say Frank Cho's first art was published in Wizard magazine, and then famously J. Scott Campbell's first art was published in Nintendo Power.
Oh.
Yeah. Another one of those magazines that's like, 9/8 shouldn't exist, but one just sold for what, $35,000 or something crazy.
Dude, I am consistently blown away when I find you see these things like. We're interviewing a guy, Vince. He runs Comic Connect.
Yeah.
And he recently put up a. They're about to sell an Iron Man 1, so Silver Age book, and it's a 9.9.
That should be
how. And it's like, so obviously this was like found in some like vault or something that like had a steel plate laying over the top of it, over like a glass sheet or something. So it just like stayed flat for 50 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, I was a Star Wars fan growing up. I don't know if you guys were or not. Rohan's not a huge fan from what I gather, but I thought I kept my stuff in pretty. Oh, Jar Jar, the epitome of episode 1. Yeah, that's awesome. You love Jar Jar?
Oh, he's my mascot.
Really?
Yeah, he is. I love bad things.
Hey, I like Darth Maul. You like Jar Jar?
I love Darth Maul. Look, we could. All right, continue your story. I want to hear what you had to say about Star Wars.
So, I ended up selling some stuff during COVID, with just getting rid of it. I wasn't into collecting again. I just saw, some stuff I was selling on Facebook, something to do. Mm-hmm. And later on, when I got into comics again, so like 2021, I had some Star Wars I want to try to sell to buy some books with. And I thought I kept my stuff nice because, and again, we're talking about that 9.9 Iron Man. I thought I kept my stuff nice, but again, when you played with stuff, they got beat to hell, and you thought you kept it in decent shape, but nothing's as good as in the box, right? That's right. 9.9. And this guy looked at my stuff. He's like, "What happened to this thing?" I'm like, "Fuck you, man! I played this damn thing. If you don't want to buy it, then don't buy it." I'm like, "I'll just keep it." Like, don't insult me because it wasn't mint condition. I didn't tell you it was mint condition. I obviously play with them. I didn't like, of course, I didn't put it in a safe, right? I play with it, but I still have it. Most people, your mom threw it out, your dad threw it out, right? Somehow I kept some of them, but none of them were high enough grade, like a Nintendo Power 9.8 or or the Millennium Falcon still in the box. Luke Skywalker early bird special type ones.
Are either of you guys watching that Nintendo Power that's on Heritage right now?
That's what I was talking about. It wasn't at some crazy price, or
it's at
35 grand.
It's got several days left. Let me see. I'd have the page saved.
Or maybe it's expected to go for like 30.
Yeah. No, I think it's been sitting at this price for a few days. It is. Yeah, it's still at 21,000. It's been at 21,000 for a week.
That's crazy.
And let's see how many days are left.
6 or 10.
Oh no, there's 18 hours on this one.
Oh, okay.
So this one will probably get hot here in the next day.
It's nuts when you something like that has no reason to ever be perfectly kept is perfectly kept. Like you said, the Iron Man one. I bought a Golden Age collection last January, very close to me, about 2 miles away, and I didn't do any research. I don't know much about Golden Age, other than like certain titles, but no specificity on books. And so I told the guy, I'm like, let me pick out a bunch of books and, tell me what you want for them. So we picked out some war books and some sports books. And I picked out a really funny Archie cover. It's this, innuendo cover. It's not one of the very famous ones, but we had a laugh, me and the guy, where we're laughing at what was on the cover. And I brought it home, and I ended up getting it graded because it was really crispy, and it came back a 9.2. It's Archie 55 from 1952, and it's a 9.2. It is the highest grade on the census. And I'm like, this book's almost as old as my parents. My parents are 75, 76, and I'm just like, how is it this good in this, almost perfect shape? It's wild. Like, it's just circumstance. Like, these were kept in a cool garage for years, it perfectly piled up so that they didn't get damaged. And 2 books out of that collection I bought are highest on the census now, because
it's funny too, because like the person that stored that book probably had no intention of like actually keeping it well. It just happened to work out that like he piled it nicely, and the place he chose, the garage, is just a cool place, and the garage didn't get flooded.
Well, we're lucky in Washington. It's the perfect climate for paper. The absolute perfect climate for paper almost all year round.
It's not too humid and not too dry.
No, it's not humid at all.
There's no humidity, and as long as your house is built right, it's dry throughout the year, no matter how wet it is outside. I still think it's only a matter of time before I find an AF-15 that's like some ridiculous grade.
I was gonna say, I want to be on the video when you pull and be like, I want to do that with you.
Well, we could do it. I mean, sometimes these collections pop up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're in my house at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And sometimes it takes like 4 days to look at it, and then another 4 days to buy it from the person. So
I think it's just that I don't know if I'm ready to start buying full collections just yet, because I don't know, but I think that's the way to make this hobby pay for itself.
Yeah,
that way.
And once you start, it's a slippery slope. You will want to buy a lot of collections, and you might spend too much money on your first collection and then refine your, the way you look at it on the second one. But it's fun. I'll tell you, if you got a little money to play around, and it doesn't have to be a shit ton of money. It can be $500. If you have a little money to play around with, it's much better than gambling. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah.
I will say, like, I just been knowing JP over these last several months, like that is the difference between he and I. Like, we do like a lot of the same stuff, but like I have a lot of joy of like getting a big score, and like I just tell JP loves the auctions and the lots and things like that. So
well, the unknown is exciting, and the only way to gain more knowledge in comics is to look at more comics and be around more comics and read some of the old fanzines and watch podcasts and stuff. And the more knowledge that you gain in the all around of comics, the more you're going to start seeing these books pop up.
Oh yeah.
You didn't know that that's what you were looking at in the first place.
And that's like what happened with that Bone 1 and 2. I mean, if I didn't see that on a Comic Tom 10, podcast, I would have not known about Bone.
Sure.
I would have passed that right over. So I saw it on the top 10, and I was like, all right. Week later, I saw it.
Let me show one more book. I swear this will be the last book I show, but the comic store owner that sold this to me said he almost threw it out because he didn't know what it is, and most people don't. But I just got one of these.
Savage Dragons.
Yeah, I just got a Graphic Fantasy #1 very recently, and it's one of the first 200, so it's numbered out of 200. It's signed by Larson and Keyes and Al Harris, and guy said he was about to throw it out, and then figured out what it was, and I got it at a steal. But 200 of these exist.
That's like 10. Isn't that like 10 G's for that book?
It's come down a bit, but I'd say this copy is probably like about a $3,000 copy.
Yeah. Wow. That's one I think you can find. Like, I've gone through so many books, and just there's those weird fanographic books.
Yeah.
That are just, I'm like, there's something to this book. I think this, and you see thousands of them, and then you think, did I just pass that over? And I'm like, damn it, like because it just has that look to it. But there's a bunch of them that I've passed over. So yeah, you got to get your eyes looking for that stuff. But I was hoping for that one. There's many I've been hoping for. So
I mean, that book is I can't imagine, aside
that's gotta be more rare than that Usagi Yojimbo, right?
It's more
At 200.
it's rarer than Usagi, it's rarer than TMNT1, it's rarer than most. It's probably the rarest book to come out in the last 40 years when it comes to like a key. But yeah, it's there's just, like the East Coast has the chance to find a Turtles, where the West Coast we have a chance to find the Albedo and the graphic fantasy. So
or the Malibu Sun.
Yeah,
I mean that's not a big as book as those ones, but you found that.
Hey, the Error edition is.
The Error edition is, but the Error edition has no. It has no. What should I say? Like, there's no rhyme or reason to the Error. Where this Rohan, actually, this book was published in Bellingham. So
was it?
Yeah, this comes from our state, and then the publisher for Albedo, Steve Galacci, lives in our area as well.
Oh, wow!
And obviously Eastman and Laird are Massachusetts guys, so
yeah,
it really isn't regionally important where you are to find some of these books. So yeah,
I know. A little funny story just to end with is I drove out. I didn't drive. I flew out to Long Beach from Pennsylvania for a church trip. And I found the closest antique store, which cost me $60 to get an Uber to take me there. Because I asked the guy, I was like, can you just, how do I make sure you pick me back up? He goes, just pick me for your drive back and I'll wait here for you. I'm like, sure. 2 hours later, he charged me for the time waiting.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize he was going to do that, but I was like, fuck, that was more than the books I bought. But I found this Robotech #1 manual, like for the role-playing game.
Yeah.
And not worth a ton of money, but there was a letter in there from a woman. She wrote a love letter to this friend of hers, and it was like handwritten, and there's phone numbers in there. Yeah. So I flew 3,000 miles, brought it back, sold the book to somebody, I think over in California on eBay, but kept that letter. So I got this letter from a girl in Washington, she and her friend, how's your love life? How's so-and-so? And I thought about calling her, but just to say I got the letter, how'd it work out? But that'd be weird. So, and the letter was like 20 years old.
I was just gonna say she's probably not thinking about that letter anymore.
No,
or she is, and it's like literally been the bane of her existence since she wrote that letter.
Yeah, totally.
So that's the fun part about you find stuff like that. There wasn't a graphic fan novel or whatever that Savage Dragon.
Yeah,
it was a love letter from one woman to the other. So
that's cool. Though. I love that. I love that.
I can't get 10 grand for that, unfortunately.
So. But it was a lot of fun talking to you guys. This was
fantastic. You are our first 2-hour episode. We dropped 2 hours.
Well,
like that.
I can talk.
You get a prize for that.
I'm a Jewish New Yorker. I've been talking by birth, and I will continue to talk until I'm dead.
Oh yeah, and JP and always and we always just like we could keep talking about this for hours. No doubt. But
it's what connects us.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks for coming on again. Obviously, this will air after it happens, but. Good luck with Davengers Con this weekend. I'll definitely jump on in there as I get free. My kids are starting to lose it here, so I get rolling.
All right.
Well,
hey, Dave, it was great meeting you, talking with you. Appreciate the
JP,
time.
Thank you.
Rohan.
Thank you for having me on. And just a little plug, West Coast Davengers on YouTube. Follow me, subscribe.
Yeah.
Will do.
Right definitely on. Wait, thanks a lot. And as always, people like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think.
Yep. Everyone have a great night. Peace out.
Later.
See y'all.